In the spotlight tonight, if you were in the Mitt Romney campaign, Election Day was a very, very surprising day. Something you never expected to happen happened. You lost the election. A couple days after Romney lost, one of his senior advisors told CBS News, "We went into the evening confident we had a good path to victory. I don't think there was one person who saw this coming." There were people who saw it coming. They just weren't in the Romney campaign, apparently, and they weren't on the media outlets the Romney campaign appeared to be paying attention to.
I think Romney will take Florida and Virginia and North Carolina, based on what I've seen.
I agree.
I think Romney gets 279 to 281 or 286 in the electoral.
I'm sticking with you. I think it's a 2-point race, 3-point race.
We're going to win by a landslide.
You know, all of my thinking says Romney big. Not even close. 300-plus electoral votes for Romney.
But outside of that group, pretty much everybody was predicting an Obama victory. And that is because all of the polls were predicting an Obama victory. And all of the betting markets are predicting an Obama victory. Suspected wizard Nate Silver had a model based on public polling that showed President Obama with a 91% chance of victory. On election eve, the popular prediction market Intrade gave President Obama a 2-to-1 chance of winning. That is a lot of wizards. So how could Mitt Romney have gotten it so very, very wrong? And all of his campaign people have gotten it so very wrong. This is a guy who made a fortune as a super analytical private equity manager who once told the Wall Street Journal editorial board, quote, "I love data. I used to call it wallowing in the data. Let me see the data. I want to see the client's data, the competitor's data. I want to see all of the data." On election day, Mitt Romney was looking at the data. It's just that the data was off. It was a bit, well, you might call it skewed. And today we learned how skewed it was. The New Republic has obtained some of the Romney campaign's final internal poll numbers. The numbers are based on a 2-day average from the weekend before the election and are from 6 key swing states. In New Hampshire, the Romney internal poll had Romney up 3.5 points. Obama won the state by 5.6 points. The Romney poll is off by over 9. Ouch. In Colorado, the Romney poll had Romney up 2.5 points. Obama won the state by 5.4. Romney poll was off by almost 8. Again, ouch. In Iowa, the Romney poll showed a tie. Obama won the state by almost 6 points. In Minnesota, the Romney poll showed Obama up 4. He won by 7.7. In Wisconsin, the Romney poll showed Obama up again 4. He won by 6.8. In Pennsylvania, the Romney poll showed Obama up 3 points. He won by 5.4. So these are big swings. This isn't a little bit off. So the question becomes, why were the Romney numbers so very off? Noam Scheiber, the reporter who got the polling data, posed that question to Romney pollster Neil Newhouse. He said, quote, "I'm not sure what the answer is," Newhouse said. His future clients may want to know that. He was explaining his polls were more accurate in most of the other swing states. Though Newhouse did acknowledge the campaign poorly predicted the demographic composition of the electorate, he said, quote, "The Colorado Latino vote was extraordinarily challenging, as it was in Florida." The Romney campaign's optimism also stemmed in part from the internal polls on voter intensity. Their polls asked voters how interested they were in the election on a scale from 1 to 10. Among voters who scored an 8, 9, or 10, Romney led in 3 of the 6 key swing states. It just turned out that those voters accounted for a smaller percentage of the electorate than Team Romney had anticipated. Another reason for their optimism was the appearance in the final days of momentum, the magic momentum. Newhouse said his numbers showed Romney stalling out around the time of Hurricane Sandy the week before the election, then recovering in the final few days of the race. He said, "We thought we had, in the last 72 hours of the campaign, made up some of the ground from the challenging messaging period during the hurricane." That momentum never actually materialized, unfortunately, and Romney, of course, went on to lose. But again, the question still is why. Joining me now, New Republic staff writer and master of all polling data, Nate Cohn, and MSNBC's very awesome Alex Wagner. Thank you guys both for being here.
Good to be here. Thanks, Ezra.
Nate, let me begin with you on the polling. What can we learn here? You went through all the polling throughout the campaign. What was your conclusion when you looked at how far off the Romney campaign got it?
Well, the first thing that you have to notice is that it's so much worse than the public polling. I mean, the Romney polls show Obama performing 5.2 points worse than he actually did, while the public polls only showed Obama performing 2 points worse than he actually did. So they're performing 3.2 points worse than the public polls, which are not getting paid by the Romney campaign to produce the right answers. And the second thing is that their explanation doesn't really line up. I mean, they didn't show diverse states like Florida or Virginia. They're showing huge 8-point errors in some of the whitest states in the country, where messing up the minority vote doesn't get you all the way there. I mean, New Hampshire's 93% white, and Obama won the white vote.
Right, it wasn't huge Hispanic turnout in New Hampshire.
And in Colorado, you know, okay, they were off by more than 8 points in a state where Latinos are 14% of the electorate. So they must have been off by orders of magnitude to get that wrong. And it's just not plausible. So their explanation doesn't completely add up. And their momentum argument doesn't add up either. I mean, these are one-day samples, and no responsible pollster is reading into one-day swings and deciding that things are going to go over the top. And the final thing is, even if they thought all these numbers were true, they were still losing. You know, these numbers add up to 267 electoral votes. They were still down in Ohio by 2. And was momentum going to make 2 points worth of difference in the final 2 days? Maybe, but that's not enough to not write a concession speech.
If your numbers say you're losing and you lose, that shouldn't be something no one on the campaign saw coming. Alex, John Bernstein, who's this political scientist who writes a plain blog about politics, it's called, and it had a really, I thought, interesting point on this. And he said what the Romney campaign did here was completely rational. Every campaign needs to believe they can win. If they don't believe they can win, they are going to lose. And so fooling yourself is a totally rational thing to do if you're a campaign. Do you buy that reasoning? Was there a kind of a master plan here, at least internally?
I think that hive mentality on some level is, I guess, excusable in a political campaign, but this is a willful disavowal of reality, Ezra. I mean, remember, if you will, this is the same campaign, the same party that sort of said, these polls, they're partisan polls, and these polls are showing Obama up because they want to disenfranchise and discourage Romney voters from coming out and voting on November 6th. That and an incredible amount of hubris. I mean, who is running that closely and doesn't write a concession speech? Ann Romney had a victory bouffant on her head. This family was ready to win. And you know, I mean, it's part and parcel of that broader strategy. I mean, time and time again, people would say, Romney, you can't run on this. You can't win an election on this. And they doubled down. I mean, this was a group of people that underestimated the American public from the very beginning. So the fact that they had these polls that were, not very good, but they would believe them till the bitter end and make no concessions otherwise is not that surprising.
To be fair, I would never miss an opportunity to wear my victory bouffant.
I know you wouldn't, Ezra, but you're a special category.
But there is a mystery. We've spent so much time, I think, in the media broadly asking why Romney's internal polling was so off. The one thing we haven't talked, I think, that much about was that Obama did finish beyond where the public polling would have suggested. He overperformed his own polling. What is your thinking on why that was? Why did he? I mean, he made Romney's numbers a lot more off than they would have been otherwise.
Yeah, I think that the gap was about 2 points. And I think from a methodological perspective, the best explanation is cell phones, that so many of Obama's core voters, young voters, and minorities are only accessible by cell phones. It is very expensive to contact them. And so most media outlets and their polls underrepresented cell phone voters as a composition of their samples. If that's not it, I think the next best explanation is that there were a bunch of latent Obama voters that switched to being undecided after the debates, that had kind of resolved on Obama after the convention, knew that's where they were going to go, had some second thoughts after the debate, but deep down they weren't prepared at any point to vote for Romney, and then in the final days swung back to his side.
And Alex, how much credit do you give to the Obama ground game here? Because that is something that people, if it did work, if it did create a 2-point swing, or at least part of it, that is something that future campaigns, both Republican and Democrat, can actually copy and replicate elsewhere.
I mean, I guess I agree with you to a point. One, I give the Obama ground game a huge amount of credit, and I think Sasha Eisenberg best sort of describes the sophistication of that operation in his book, The Victory Lab, which is beyond anything that modern political campaigns have seen, and to the degree that Fortune 500 companies are asking the Obama campaign about consumer data. I mean, that's how much they had drilled down into the electorate. The other thing is, in terms of replicating it, I think that, look, what we're learning about the internet, voter outreach, communication among groups of the American public, it's complicated and it's ever-changing. I mean, I think what we saw was a 2.0 of the Dean campaign. I think we're going to see another version of it in 2016. But this is the line in the sand where you really have an A-D-B-C thing in terms of data and reaching out to voters. And the Romney campaign, I think it's amazing that their digital Operation Orca, and it was a complete failure, both in semiotics and in actual practice.
Alex Wagner and Nate Cohn, thank you both for joining me tonight.
Thanks for having
Ezra.
me.
Have a great weekend. Coming up, Obama's plan to save the world. Really, it starts out saving $18 billion, and it might actually end up saving the world, at least from drama in Washington. I'll explain it coming up. And how deeply embedded is growerthink in Washington? It is even infecting immigration reform. That is next.